On this episode of IT Unplugged, we get to know Joe, the new VP of Information Technology at M2 Technology.
At M2 Technology, we're on a mission to make IT accessible to everyone. Join us on our journey to demystify the ever-evolving world of business technology. Are you ready to get unplugged?
Welcome to IT Unplugged. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Joe.
And Joe, I'm so excited to have you here. When we're taping this, you're 6 days into your time at M2 Technology. Just joined us as the VP of IT, and we are thrilled to have you with us. But I thought we'd take this episode to kind of get to know you a little bit. So
yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, who's Joe?
Yeah, so I've been in the Fox Valley, Green Bay, metro area for my whole adult life. Mm-hmm. Grew up north of here, obviously. So I've been Northeast Wisconsin my whole life. Started my educational journey planning to do something else, much like you.
Yeah.
So when I started, I was going to be a teacher because I'm a teacher at heart,
mm-hmm.
and family full of educators and administrators in the school systems. And then I switched. I was going to be an actuary. And,
okay. Well, let's stop. Wait, what were you going to teach? And then how'd you make a switch to actuary? How did that happen?
Sure. Yeah. I was going to teach math.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's, and so I've always been, mathematically inclined. And when I went through sort of the life of a teacher and,
mm-hmm.
and all that, obviously I experienced it, but then I was like, well, let's be the black sheep in the family and experience something different, right? Because why not? And so then I went and passed the first two actuarial exams while I was in college, and then pivoted again.
Okay.
And added a computer science degree, and here I am.
Yeah. What did you have any pressure? I'm always interested in this because there's stats out there that indicate that whatever your major is, like most people pivot away from it at one point. But there's always a lot. As someone that did the same, I had a criminal justice major. Did you have that kind of like feeling or pressure like from family, coming from a teacher family? Like, hey, what are you doing? You're moving away from this?
No, I think if there was any pressure, it was just self-induced. Just to kind of follow in the. But yeah, there was no.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, just follow your passion.
Yeah, so actuary then to computer science. What got you interested in computer science? Like, how did that kind of come about?
I heard this from somebody a long time ago, I guess, that do what you're good at.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, math and then naturally into computer science. And there was, and it seems like not that long ago, but it really was a long time ago. That was just that was a kind of an industry in its infancy.
Yeah.
And so I did an internship, loved it, and then just followed it.
Nice. Did you have any hobbies or anything like that kind of like drove you to that computer science area?
No, but I guess one thing that did drive me to this was, I guess kind of coupling the concepts here. My dad was the principal at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, in the summer, they're redoing the classrooms or whatever. And he had to bring home a couple computers, who knows.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had an Apple IIe in our living room.
Okay.
And so I fired it up and, did all the games and Oregon Trail and,
sure.
Anybody who lived in that era knows all the stuff. But yeah, it was kind of addicting then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, you find like a lot of people that are into the games or that early thing kind of transition into computer science. It's that nice like entry level in. And I remember myself sitting around Oregon Trail late at night, playing with a buddy or something and figuring out who's going to get dysentery and who we're going to have to kick off, to eat the food or whatever. So.
Or the random wagon wheel break or whatever,
Yeah. And you have to sacrifice. You always name them like all your brothers or sisters. And you're like, yep, we're getting rid of Sally. She's gone. Yeah.
Yep.
So what was your first role when you got into kind of IT?
I was a Linux administrator, and then I got into web design and development. And then it kind of transitioned out of necessity
mm-hmm.
into doing some network and infrastructure support.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Would you mind just kind of running us through some of your background when it comes to, where you've worked or things that you've done at work at least, and kind of how you've moved into this position, the, vice president position and, other C-suite kind of level roles that you've had?
Sure. Yeah. Well, like I said, started with an internship, and then that was, Linux and web stuff. And then there was a need for the company I was working for to do some JD Edwards support. And so volunteered, Rose, sounds good. Let's get at it. And so I did a little bit of JD Edwards consulting, and then I moved on to a company I was at for about 23 years in the logistics space, and varying roles from there. But it started with getting their infrastructure and their network. I was part of the team that did that, but got it stable, and then we grew, and in 2005 implemented JD Edwards, and because of my previous experience with it, hey, can you help run this? And so from a technical standpoint, I was kind of the go-to person for JD Edwards, and then supported that until the day I was done there. But in that, I also moved up from in manager role, director role, and at the end I was the CIO.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. So when you kind of look at that, you said, those are some big jumps that you kind of take, and sometimes individual contributor. Then when somebody gets into leading and managing teams, or somebody that's maybe overseeing a little bit more, it can be a hard transition. But you said you were kind of a teacher at heart previously. So, kind of walk me through that transition, how responsibilities change, or is that something that you embraced, or was it a challenge?
Yeah, kind of all of it, right? It was a challenge, certainly. Certainly something I embraced. I always see it as an opportunity. I think, when you get promoted internally in an organization, that presents different challenges than if you go, into a new company like this situation. But I think when you look at if the internal promotion, I think it says a lot about the people that are there when that's a successful transition.
Sure.
Same thing when you go to a different company, the people have to embrace you. And so, I'm 6 days into this and hopefully, starting to be embraced. But when you're internal and you keep moving up and people are, hey, maybe they wanted to sell themselves in that position or whatever, but to sort of step back and say like, yeah, I get that. Joe's deserving, and we're going to all make this thing work. That was a pretty special experience. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you have to be a certain kind of leader to get that buy-in from the people around you as well. So tell me a little bit about your leadership style, because I'm excited for you to come in and, M2 Technology, a growing company, and, we've grown so organically, and haven't had a lot of people that have kind of come in yet, like through our growth, that have getting the opportunity to kind of define a little bit like what the team looks like and more processes in place and different things. So, you need to gain that buy-in, right? So what's your leadership style? How do you get that?
Yeah. Well, first, it's all about people. And I know that sounds cliche, but it is 100% about people. And first, I think a huge part of my leadership style and how I view teams and building that comes from coaching basketball. So, as you know, I was a basketball coach still am. Yeah. But I was a head coach for about 12 years, and now an assistant. But so it's been about 15 years. But there's so many lessons that you can learn about how to interact with people, and but the biggest thing I think is, and this comes right from sports, is kids they don't really care what unless they know you care. Sure. You guys have heard that, and that's true with adults too. And so, learning about the people, understanding what makes them motivated, makes them unmotivated, what they're interested in, all that, and then sort of molding your approach around those people. That's really important. Okay. And then the other part of it is when you get to know the person personally and understand what their personal life is, people that don't realize that affects their professional life are misguided. Yeah. That is, you can't be great at one without being, secure in the other one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so,
100%.
And so I've always kind of looked through that lens, and I didn't anticipate learning as much about leading teams in business. I didn't realize how much I would learn through the experience in coaching high school sports. So thank you, kids and parents and administration. Yeah.
Well, that's so interesting too, because it feels like it's a little bit of an individualized approach to the person. Is that kind of what you're saying a little bit?
Yeah. So you have to. I've always focused on like what someone can bring, because when you look at it as like a sports team, this is a really easy analogy. Is some people can't dribble with their left hand. Some people are great rebounders.
Sure.
But that rebounder maybe can't dribble 2 dribbles.
Yep.
Okay. And so somehow you have to put all these people together, and what are they really good at? And then how can we be successful using all of the strengths of the combined unit?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you focus on the fact that that person can't dribble with their left hand, you're going to spend time that is going to be pointless. You're never going to achieve success. So when you start to focus on their strengths, and you have to supplement weaknesses. That's what practice is for. But you have fewer practice days in the business world, right?
Yeah.
So, but you also have to create practice days at work, and so that's a whole other technique. But yeah, when you focus on what people bring instead of what they don't bring, it goes a lot better.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I've definitely worked in environments where their management style is the hammer, and then they use the hammer on everybody, right? and then you go, you're like, hey, why isn't this person engaged? It's like, well, they don't respond very well to the hammer, and that's the tool that you've brought, and you have nothing else in your tool belt. So it's good to hear that you have a varied approach when it comes to that, because people respond to things differently.
Sure.
What do you mean about practice days, though, at work? I'm kind of curious by what you meant by that.
Well, I think, we kind of lose sight of this stuff. So in the business world, everything's a game day. Mm-hmm. That's how people see it. When in actuality, you're going to lag and fall behind if you don't create practice opportunities. So in sports, you have 3 days of practice, sure. You have a game or whatever. Professional sports is less. You have a practice and 2 games maybe or whatever. Mm-hmm. But regardless, professional sports teams practice. And we need to implement some of that stuff within our organization. And what does that look like? Well, do you have a passion around, I'll just use a simple example, 3D printing? Mm-hmm. I don't know, but you can learn a lot in that journey through understanding how to set up a 3D printer, what the software looks like.
Sure. How
do I create, my own little, gadget or whatever that I can print. And then what happens is you'll get a customer that you find that business case for, mm-hmm. that you didn't even know there'd be a business case for. But because you have that time set aside to practice and tinker and, sort of like curate your, skills, that game day becomes a different game. So.
Yeah. So this is really interesting because I'm kind of curious. Like, I fully agree with what you're saying, but there's got to be, I'm not saying I've worked for a lot of them, but like short-sighted leaders that are maybe above that see you on a practice day, let's say, and it's like hair on fire all the time. Hey, we don't have time for that. How do you get buy-in from someone and manage up to show them the value in that?
I have worked for great people. That is you have to, there are some organizations that will be a no-go, right? Mm-hmm. They walk in and you're 3D printing and what are we doing? What am I spending money on? Whatever. But when you get around really good people that understand, the big picture and really what's happening, that goes a long way. Now, the other part of I would say that is on the employees. Like if you're given those opportunities, like you have to produce on game day.
Yes.
Yeah. You're going to get benched otherwise. Right. So that's the thing is when you deliver based on those days, people see the value in those sort of practice days. And
yeah, absolutely.
And then what happens is so they see you doing the 3D printer, and then mm-hmm. they'll tell their work associates or their buddies like, hey, we got Brandon over here working on this 3D printer thing. And then the conversations go, and then all of a sudden there's, wow, can he come in and show? Yeah. So it spirals out of control sometimes. But,
and then you're doing something random that's wasn't related, but still will add value in some way. No, absolutely. I love that. Say you work for a lot of good people. I'm just kind of curious because you have a lot of experience in this, and I'm wondering, how do you find the good people to work for? So many people are in jobs or different places where they are, like there's a lack of joy, or they don't have the autonomy to really use a lot of their strengths. So, you being in a couple different companies, how do you determine like this is the right place for me, or these are people that I want to work with or for? Sure.
So when I first started, and I didn't really look into that. The person that hired me, I was good friends with. Mm-hmm. He brought me over there, right? And I didn't know enough probably at that stage in my career to really look and see the values of the company, all that stuff. I would say I stayed there because of the values of the company and the people that were there. Mm-hmm. And then as I've, as I've moved on now, that's the number one thing I look for. And it's a lot of conversations. It's about, how do you see employees? What are the values of your company? And that's why it took me so long to make a decision on M2, honestly. But
because of all the red flags you're saying?
I don't know. Yeah, I had to sort through all that. Because I had to get to know people, and I had to know people and the values, and whether those values that were on the wall actually meant something. Yeah. And when you talk to the people that are around there, it does. Otherwise, I don't know. But you have to do due diligence up front. Yeah.
Well, I definitely noticed that, because it did take a little bit for you to come on board, but I loved it, because every time I saw you were meeting with someone else in the company, and it might have even been somebody that wasn't related to the IT field. Right. It was somebody else, and saw you in an office. I'm like, is he working here yet? No, he's just coming in, and we're talking to people. But it took I personally love that, where you're interviewing the company that you're potentially going to work for, right? Because it is a due diligence, and it's double-sided. I've made the mistake of maybe working out of mindset of like, I need to switch jobs, so then I'm going to take the thing that comes. Like when I transitioned into sales, that's kind of how it was. But then eventually you remember, you're like, it's the people that make the big difference, and who you're working for, what drives their actions. And the actions really speak louder than the words. And the only way to figure that out is to sit down and interview them right back.
Right.
Yeah. So what's your thing that you're most excited for when it comes to being in the IT field and coming on with this VP of IT role with M2 Technology?
Well, I think this would be too long of a question to answer, to be quite honest.
Sure.
But I guess if I have to give a short, simple answer, I think the approach that people are looking at with M2 Technology, and sort of like what the vision for the future is. I think that was really appealing to me, and the opportunity to get in with this team. Yeah. That was the exciting part.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then there's a bunch of layers to that answer.
Yeah. Go one deeper. What else is in there?
Well, the ability to make the impact in the area. Yeah. I think there's as I'm getting a little older now, I kind of view the motivation through a little different lens, and how technology can enhance just areas, industry. And so how do we help some of these companies, implement their business strategies through technology? And I mean, it sounds a little silly, I guess, but it really is part of the excitement about IT. And specifically with M2 Technology, and there are other companies, but other M2 Technology, that we're able to make a difference in the community. Yeah.
No, I love that. That's one of the reasons that I like. It doesn't feel like selling for me, being on the sales side. It's so much fun to, after a customer's onboarded and a month goes by and they're like, we don't have any of the problems we used to have anymore. All those IT friction points are gone. Yeah. And that is fun, because there's nothing worse than having passion to get somewhere to do something and having a bunch of friction in the way that you just don't know how to fix. Something like maybe IT issues, and then to have someone else kind of come over and be like, we can handle that. Yeah. It's a fun thing to be a part of. Yeah. Because then you're essentially part of their team. So.
Yeah. And from your perspective, I know you say sales, but it really is just creating the relationship and the partnership of hey, we get you want to be a successful business, and let's clear this pain point from you. And you're right. It's really easy to have that conversation because it's real, and it's you can believe in it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I feel like I'm getting to know you over these weeks and stuff like that. Our listeners are getting to know you. Is there anything else that we should know about Joe?
No. No.
No?
I don't
Okay.
have anything else.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure as we continue to go on more topics, we're really excited to just hear your expertise in the field and to also introduce you to more of our partners, because I feel like your values and everything that you're going to bring to the table is just really going to make a huge difference at M2 Technology, and there's a ton of alignment there. So.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks so much for joining us on IT Unplugged. And if you need anything from an IT provider or have questions, concerns, reach out to M2 Technology. We're here to help.